Hello, welcome back to your mom's podcast.
Abstract thinking bitches.
Yes. What are we discussing today, Nick? Let's jump right into it, as they say.
Jumping right into it. We're gonna dive into this.
Dive right into that like button.
Really?
Yeah.
It was so gay. It was so dumb.
That was the point.
But I don't know. We can talk about hedonism again because we were just talking about that.
We always talk about that.
But no. What do you want to talk about? We can go try to restart our existentialism versus pessimism.
Well,
we had.
I don't know if you want to do this, but I actually prepared a fucking episode a long time ago, dude.
I don't know if I want to do this, Matthew. Anything you prepare is kind of like iffy for me, man.
Well, like I actually took literal notes, dude.
Oh. It seems pretty fucking dark in here.
It is, but I have another string of lights. You see that?
Yeah, let's see. We're in fucking purple land.
We're in Contra's bedroom. No.
Dude, the people watching this have no idea who that is.
I mean, Google, right? But
don't get any more subscribers for Contra. For the love of God, please don't.
Do you want to talk about Marxism?
No, I don't.
All right, well, we can't do that.
We always talk about Marxism.
No, I mean like just in a general way, not really like debate, but
I mean, you want to talk about the philosophies behind Marxism?
Well, I was going to talk about like modern.
Yo, get a call.
Okay.
I gotta take this.
Take it. I'll spread some communist propaganda while you're at that.
No, I'm heading up to that. Or actually, I'm already at that. So there's no more. Yeah.
We're 2 minutes out.
You can go with it. I don't really care. Okay. Bye. I'm back, bitches. But yeah, do you want to talk about the philosophies behind Marxism?
I took notes about like modern what Marxists today think. So
what do you mean Marxists today? Like socialists? Democratic socialists? Bernie Sanders?
Kind of.
You want to talk about the philosophies of Bernie Sanders' mind?
Well, I don't even know.
Do
you even know like the true philosophy of Bernie and AOC?
I know they're socialists.
It's just like Bernie said. Bernie really fucked up when he did this, but he said democratic socialism.
Social democracy.
Yeah, there's a difference there because democratic socialism is changing the whole system from capitalism to socialism, and social democracy is a more leftist capitalist system. You don't really revolutionize anything in social democracy. It's just reform.
That was weird. We just drank at the same time, after.
Indeed, but I mean, I I wrote a lot of
apparently.
Yeah.
Some like untranslatable gibberish.
But I can read it. Important thing is that I can read it.
And nobody else can. Because you have fucking doctors handwriting that.
I know. But you want to get into it?
Sure, I don't really care.
Well, basically, Marxism. What is Marxism? Some might be saying. Marxists believe that the problems humanity faces are a consequence of the capitalist system and are built into the capitalist system. So it's not only that capitalism has problems. Marxists claim that capitalism is a problem. Really, is the Marxist idea. And Marx was a Hegelian, so Hegel, and he believed that ideas were the greatest product of humanity. He was an idealist, but rejected that ideas created the world and said that the material realm creates the realm of ideas as well. That's what dialectical materialism is. So, like, we the idealist realist discussion. Basically, Marx claimed that
Marx was a hyper idealist who lacked realism, in my opinion.
Marx claimed that not only did the ideal realm influence the reality realm, but the reality realm influenced the ideal realm as well. It's vice versa. It's a cycle type deal.
Cyclical.
But I mean, dialectical.
If you really think about it, the real world affects the ideological world a lot more than the ideological world affects the real world.
Well, that's kind of the point.
So it's basically thought process is communist.
Huh?
Thought process is communist.
Why?
Because it gets hit by a lot of fucking realism really quickly, and it doesn't give much back for idealism, is basically what I'm saying. Saying a lot of Marxist ideals are flawed, Matthew.
Now, not only did Marx introduce this dialectical materialism, but also historical materialism, so really analyzing history through the lens of what actually happened. And so his analysis of social systems was that internal contradictions within those social systems killed them. So basically, his idea was that capitalism will eventually replace itself, just like slavery and feudalism, by rebels who notice and expose the internal contradictions within the system. Yeah. So Marxists claim that capitalism is just another human system that we will move past eventually.
I mean, if you really think about it, all human systems die.
Mm-hmm.
That's because they're replaced by. I don't want to put this, make it sound like healthier thought process here. Like, in many cases, and I'm not saying socialism is the answer or Marxism is the answer here. In many cases, things evolve. And what I mean by evolve is they're replaced by something better, suited for what is there at the time, right? So don't get me wrong, I agree with you that capitalism is probably going to be replaced at some point. What I disagree with you with is the fact that it's going to be replaced by something Marxist. I think it's going to be replaced by something that's totally different from communism or capitalism. I think it's going to be replaced by something that's better than both.
Because
everything has to be replaced. Everything.
I'm intrigued by the possibility of a better than both system. Because it's entirely arguable that things like Soviet socialism wasn't even really socialism.
Soviet socialism was communism. Call it what it is.
But the reason why, like, Noam Chomsky breaks this down, he said that Lenin actually gave up, like, towards the later part of his life when he was dying.
Yeah, because he saw how flawed his ideas.
I'm explaining this. He gave up this for the communist paradise to be created in Russia. He said instead, in the Marxist, like, he was a traditional Marxist. So he thought that the revolution and the real revolution, like, that would bring about the communist paradise, the utopia, was only going to happen in the place in the world where it was the height of capitalism, and that was Germany at the time. So what he said was the Russian revolution was just like a pseudo, like, precursor to the real revolution that would occur in Germany. But of course, he never lived to see that because it never even happened. Exactly. Lenin was wrong about that, but Lenin basically gave up on communism in the USSR. He was just like, this is not the utopia, and the utopia won't come here.
Something I think a lot of communists and socialists should give up on.
See, like, this would be way better. Like, sometimes I wish that I had somebody who was, like, to the left of me to debate and, like, talk to, because, like, I want to be able to get into the ideas within Marxist thought without anybody saying that, like, just denying the premise right away. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to discuss theory, like, in a way that's actually trying to find, like, the real answer, you know?
I mean, I'm sorry, I guess.
I'm just saying, like, it's a thing. It's a problem we talk about a lot. There's not enough intellectual people in our society.
Exactly.
So
It sounds like claiming there though that the only intellectual people are on the left.
no, I'm just saying that like there's not enough intellectual people. Period. Therefore, there's not going to be enough educated leftists who actually want to talk about theory around. Like,
I mean, there isn't enough educated anything. Just talk about really anything.
that's my point.
So I mean, like, how do I put this? Like, I don't know what to say, Matthew. You've put me into a spot where I actually have not any words to say, which is weird.
That is weird.
Because I mean, I'm not extremely left, so I can't say anything involving your thought process. I can only relate to you to the fact that like there isn't enough intellectual people
Yeah.
around the world that you can really debate with those around you over a bunch of different thought processes.
But like, do you want me to get into like we can discuss this as a left versus right discussion?
Yeah, but that'll turn into a debate.
Because I could get into like the actual internal contradictions in capitalism. Because that's the next
I
part.
could get into the internal contradictions of communism and socialism.
Okay, like what?
Like the fact.
Well, first of all, we have to define your terms first of all, because like everybody's got a different definition of fucking communism. Everyone.
Like when the workers revolt either physically or politically, and gain control of like the what's the word I'm looking for?
Means of production?
Yeah, means of production, and they gain control of the means of production. They then realize the fact that it's really like idiotic for us all to do the same vote on the same thing over and over and over again, all of us. Whereas when we could just create a bureaucracy to run it for us, which would be a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot smarter.
This is a debate that Slavoj Žižek and Yanis Varoufakis had a lot, because Yanis is the former financial minister for Greece, and he has this movement where he's trying to basically bring more democracy to Europe. He's one of these like democratize the workplace people, and Zizek is not like that. He's more of like an old style leftist where he's like, no, actually, I want a bureaucracy that I can't see to make the decisions for me, so that I don't have to go out of my way to do that. Like Slavoj doesn't want to sit in a meeting fucking every week.
Yeah. And in the truest cases of socialism and communism, it wouldn't just be like a weekly thing. It would be hourly almost.
Well, so you're thinking about like a system where literally every citizen has the responsibility to vote on literally everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's democracy. That is
absolute democracy. Yeah. Which is oftentimes a communist ideal.
Whereas you have people who are, I don't want to say Republicans, but people who are for republics.
Oh, disk space. What?
But people who are for republics, I don't know if that would be a Republican or not, but people who are for republics realize a lot of these things, even outside the economic sides of it, over the whole political and societal ideals of it too, socio-political and economic, or basically everything that's involved with politics. It's a lot easier and it's a lot quicker and it's a lot more reasonable to have certain representatives to hold up the wants of the people, the wants of the majority while supporting the minority.
The Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Right.
See, a lot of people who are listening don't have no idea what the Bolsheviks like.
Well, the Bolshevik Party was Lenin's party in the Soviet Revolution. What that means in Russian is the majority, and the Mensheviks were the minority, to the whites, as they would say. Whites versus reds. But
War
So-
Roses.
so your claim is that an internal contradiction to communism is that absolute democracy will inevitably breed bureaucracy because it's too much work.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is a fair point to make, I must say. Because that is like a fucking point of contention that a lot of leftists have with each other. Is like, where do we stand about the bureaucrat thing?
The
you know?
bureaucracy.
Mm.
Basically, what I was trying to say is that when you get pure democracy through worker revolt, both either politically or violently through revolution or political revolution, it always cycles back to the bureaucracy because the people realize that they honestly kind of need this bureaucracy to run. That's why I say that the only places where you can really only have communism or socialism are in very, very small communities, very small states, because they can realistically make all these votes. And their government wouldn't be wealthy enough, at least, to have these votes constantly. They would have to be a weekly thing.
So wouldn't it seem like the best thing to do would be to have several different smaller states, let's say, state bodies, in a federation together? That would be like a communist state.
No, because then you'd get internal warfare.
How so?
Because if you're creating this big communist state, right, through all these
Through smaller communist states.
through smaller communist states, then one like a third of these communist states, and like let's take the questions that every state does every voting season, right? Like this year it was 6, I think. There were 6 questions, and you have, let's say, I don't know, 20 different smaller states that form this one big communist union, right? So all of these 20 different states are voting on these same 6 questions. And let's say for all of these 6 questions, there are 4 different possibilities that they could choose from.
Okay.
That the state has set up. There are these 4 different choices you can make, which will decide how the state's going to go about doing this. And let's say, I don't know, think of a question for me. It could be economics, could be politics, could be societal. Let's actually stay away from societal because societal is a little bit iffy. But like,
I want socialism. So like, let's say like, okay, approve us whether or not to spend this money to build this train track.
like,
Is that a good question?
like how much money?
Like, it's going to cost us
Like $4 million. Something
yeah,
like,
sure. Drop $4 million to build this fucking
So
Amtrak.
we need to let's say raise taxes. We need to raise taxes to get this whole $4 million out of our state to build this. Then if every other state, every other one of these states in this communist union has to vote on that same question, and this union wants to build a railroad through the union,
Right.
what if one of the states where it's supposed to be going through votes against this?
Well,
because if you're going to have a state-based system like that, you have to give states majority power in the federal government.
so would you not just not include the railroad in that state? Isn't that what you do?
It would cost a lot more money, and you can bend around it. But then you'd have to pass this vote through the other states you're planning on putting it through.
So there's another vote process that goes on.
Yes.
So it seems as if what this creates is a system where it's almost like endless voting happens. But I feel like for some people that's preferable to a system where a more unitary government kind of just decides these things itself, right?
I mean, you can't call our government unitary, though. It's not unitary.
But I mean, like,
Are you talking about an actual pure unitary government?
Yeah, or it would definitely be preferable to a lot of people for that to happen than just the government body picks without the say of the citizens. Is my feeling.
But the governments don't do that unless they're totalitarian, like North Korea or Soviet Russia,
right? But still, it's still a viable preference.
And don't get me wrong. If I had to choose between communism or totalitarianism, I would choose communism too. I'd rather starve to death than never be able to do anything ever again. Okay? I'd rather die than lose my freedoms.
Yeah, that's a true libertarian right there, kids.
Straight up. Like, if I had to choose Honestly, if I had to choose between communism and totalitarianism, and I had the choice to put a bullet in my skull, I'd choose the bullet in my skull.
What if the communism works though?
Communism doesn't work.
Well, what if it's working at the time? It's like,
I mean,
oh, we have this paradise.
but
Everybody's equal
here's
here.
the thing.
We're all
Here's the thing.
eating.
When you have something like that, when you throw communism into a country, it works for like 2, 3, 4 years. It'll work for a couple of years, but then the government realized, oh, we're running out of money very, 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 very quickly. And when they start running out of money, they raise the taxes, and everybody starts losing all their shit. And everything just goes to shit.
Tends to happen, but
It's happened with almost every communist state ever. Either that or their federal government was so weak that they could not produce an army, and their rivals took them over.
poor Catalonia. Those fucking Spanish fascists. But may I introduce to you an internal contradiction of capitalism?
Of course.
And retort.
Yes.
One that's I think is kind of really important and glaring is that capitalists seek cheaper labor wherever they can. But this makes the laborers poorer, and then they're unable to buy the product that they're making that the capitalists are selling. So basically, a rich CEO, by the way of capitalism, is killing their own business because they're making it so that the constituency can't buy their product.
So they destroy their business.
Right.
I don't see the problem in this.
That's the internal contradiction.
I don't see the problem with them destroying their own business, because realistically, nobody who has a capitalistic beliefs and follows a capitalist system is realistically going to destroy their own business for their own.
But isn't that a problem because that is a logical progression from seeking cheaper labor is you make the laborers poorer so they can't even buy the stuff that they're laboring towards.
What do you mean? Like that? Like it's just so terrible that they don't want to buy it anymore?
No, what I mean is the price
raises and the quality of things gets
less. The wages are lower.
Yeah,
so they're not even paid enough to buy the thing they're making.
But
like basically what I'm saying is that the sweatshop workers who build the iPhones can't afford the iPhones. That's what I'm saying.
That's because they live in communist societies.
No, China is not communist anymore. The Communist Party
fake it.
No, the Communist Party is just running the capitalism there.
Can I explain something to you? And guys, I'm gonna make Google look evil with this. Okay?
Okay. I'm all for making fucking big companies look evil, dude.
Well, Google is kind of evil. Literally, Google and the Chinese government. The Chinese government has agreed with Google, and this is how totalitarian China is right now.
Mm-hmm.
They've made this deal with Google where Google agreed to help them design a credit system, like credit cards, credit system, where instead of, paying back debts as the way they gain credit, the way they raise their credit, instead, if they share, like if they go on their Facebook and they share something that the government supports, they get higher credit. But if they go and say something against the government, they lose credit.
So it's literally like,
and even if their family members say something about the government, they lose their credit. Even if their close friends do it, they lose some credit.
But you can't say anything too bad about the Chinese government, or you go to jail, right?
Yeah, straight up. And that's the thing. If you say something really kind of terrible, like really terrible, then your credit's going to fall enough to a point where the Chinese government is making their citizens agree to the fact that if your credit gets low enough with the system, then we can literally arrest you because you're against the Chinese government.
That does not sound like true communism.
That is totalitarianism at its, I can't call it finest because totalitarianism is not fine.
So let's say worst.
But when you China was a communist society that had fallen ill into a totalitarian society now.
Right. But they were totalitarian communists even when they were Maoists.
Yeah. So but that's what happens with communism. That's what that's what I kind of pointed out earlier. When you have state-based communism, like Stalin and the USSR, or Mao in China, excuse me, or what's his face in Venezuela? I can't remember his name.
Nicolas Maduro.
Oh, yeah, Nicolas Maduro.
But that's not even. He doesn't even call himself communist. He calls himself a socialist.
Yeah, but it's kind of communism. It's still state-run socialism. Technically, it's still state socialism.
And the vast corruption in the government is contributing a lot to the problems in the country. It's not just the fact that there's a left-wing system, because the
But
left-wing
basically-
system isn't even really like, it's just nominally that, because that happens in South America all the
finish what
time.
I'm saying.
But finish your point.
So there are two major types of communism or socialism, if you want to say it that way. There are major types of socialism. You have state socialism, which is, like I said, USSR, now China, blah, blah, blah.
It's what I claim is not real socialism.
And then I don't know what to call it, and I can't remember this country's name. What was that country we were talking about?
Catalonia?
I'm going to just call it that. I'm going to call it Catalonian socialism, which is a socialism where it's not state run, it's not state socialism,
Right.
but it's set up in such a weak state-based way.
Some fascists could come kick
That
your ass.
it's very easy for surrounding countries to just move in and take over, and that's the problem with socialism. Because when you get a small country who's under a socialist understanding, they have this sort of Catalonian socialism that they set up, but they make it so their government is so weak, their federal government is so weak that they just cannot support an army to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you have state-based or totalitarian socialism, like Mao China, Stalin's Russia, then you have the money to support this military to protect yourself, right? But the way you make this money is by raising taxes astronomically, and then when your people refuse to pay it, you literally have to go in there guns a-blazing and take it from them.
That's never good. Let me make that position of mine clear. I'm not for that.
You're not for Stalinian socialism,
Right. You could just say Stalinism.
or totalitarian socialism. That's what I prefer to call it, because that's mainly what it is.
Totalitarian communism is what I would say. It's a perversion of what Marxism is supposed to be. That's how I would put it.
When
It's
everything
a
can be perverted,
version.
anything can be perverted towards evil.
Because I'm no fan of Stalin, despite my sometimes frequent outbursts of hatred towards the people who are sort of ruining our earth right now. I wouldn't be for chopping off their heads. But regardless of that.
But as you were saying,
actually, you mentioned credit. I wrote down that credit is another internal contradiction of capitalism as we see. It's a band-aid of the shotgun wound of cheap labor's creation of poor laborers. Okay, so we talked about how businesses will destroy themselves that way by seeking out the cheaper labor and causing the laborers to become
I disagree
poorer.
with that, though, because if you really think about it,
that leads to the credit thing that happens. Because if you realize, we didn't introduce that system till more recently in
all true.
time. So
we introduced the credit system we have currently during 1932.
Right, that was only after they had to cover up some
that's because
negative shit.
And that's because we're fixing a worse credit system we had before.
But what I'm trying to introduce here is that debt slavery is the result, because that's what keeps the system going, trotting on its weak feet as it dies.
Communism does similar things, and it's really not debt slavery. If you want to know what debt slavery is, look at ancient Egypt. If you were in debt to somebody, you literally, if you couldn't pay them back, you literally became their fucking slave.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's the literal version
But
of the proverbial debt slavery.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's debt slavery, because we offer many ways to escape massive amounts of debt.
But do the people actually escape their debts?
Yes. Look at bankruptcy.
Yeah, but no one wants to go bankrupt unless you're 50 Cent, right? Like,
unless you're Trump.
Unless you're Donald Trump.
If you're a realistic businessman, you know that going bankrupt sometimes is a smart move. Going bankrupt should not be a bad thing, and it isn't a bad thing. It's a state-based way to offer us out of these so-called debt slaveries that Matthew is offering. And it's the way our federal government supports the people through these massive debts. The only things we can't really, there are certain things that bankruptcy will not help us get out, like student loans, for example. But when realistically, there is no such thing as debt slavery and as actual like realistic debt slavery in this country.
What do you mean?
Because the way our government's moving nowadays is even student loans are.
Yeah, I was about to say, if I'm in a state of student loan debts where it's like, oh, look at this, I'll be fucking paying for this till I'm 45. Like that seems to me like debt slavery, as I would call it.
At least it's not nearly as bad as actual slavery that certain communism will set up.
Oh,
that's
like
not nearly debt slavery.
Yeah.
Real debt slavery means you're in debt until you're fucking 80.
Obviously, the gulags is a form of slavery because it's just people working for free and they can't leave. But yeah, I'm not for doing that either, so it's kind of irrelevant anyway. But
that we don't have debt slavery. Like I was saying, even with the way,
but we have debts that people don't escape from.
Like I was saying, with student loan, and the government is moving, and the American government, at least the U.S. government. I'm not going to say anything about any other capitalist nation because honestly, right now, I don't understand a lot about other nations' economies. I mainly focus on ours because it's the one I live in, right? Okay, so with America's or the U.S.'s economy, we are moving more towards ways where student loan debts are becoming a lot more affordable than they have ever been before.
Is that true?
Yes.
How are they achieving that?
We're setting it up so the government's setting it up so the government's paying off more of your student loans.
Well, that's good. There we go.
Yes, it's a little bit socialist. And honestly, there are times when I kind of disagree with it because I think if we ran colleges more like businesses, they'd be cheaper anyway. Just saying.
Are you sure? Because that's already what they do. It already runs like a business.
No, it's not really.
Kind of.
With the amount of money that the government gives to people to.
Well, obviously, you have public universities that get government money. That's kind of a.
No, not like that. I mean, like the government will offer people like 50%. They'll offer to pay like 50% of to like almost everyday citizens, so almost like average citizens for their college tuition and stuff like that. But when you do that, when you allow that to happen, like colleges see, oh, the government's just going to pay for it. Let's raise our price for our tuition.
That's an interesting little tactic that they use. Yeah.
And if it was ran more like businesses, and this is why there are things like competitive pricing. Like if you go like for example, if you go to Walmart and you go to Hannaford, right? And you go to Walmart and bread's $3, for example.
Right.
And then you go to Hannaford after and you see, oh, bread's $2.80. Which one are you gonna buy?
You're gonna buy the cheaper one. So what you're saying is the colleges should compete as if their education is a market.
Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But in almost every aspect, aren't they already acting as if that's the case?
No, because you'll have let's look at the University of Maine systems, for example.
Okay.
UMFK, USM, UMF, UMPI, all of them offer a pre-law program, right?
I believe so.
And all of them are astronomical. I shouldn't say astronomical. Are pretty damn high price.
Okay.
But if you made all of those different humans their own business, then all of them would be competing to get those free law students.
Wouldn't there be a monopolization of education, though?
And that's when the government steps in and is like, no, you can't do this. You can't monopolize the education.
But
especially when they come to the government's aid to pay for things around the college. When the government
seems like a system that would kind of fall apart.
When the government's still funding these colleges to help them build buildings on their campuses, right?
Okay.
These colleges would have to agree to allow these government personalities and these government personnel to be on these campuses to make sure they're not breaking a bunch of these economic rules.
All right, but
Because that's
What
the
has
thing.
to go in order for them to start competing as you described? What has to happen?
The U.S. government would have to pay a lot less, that offer a lot less help paying for tuitions. Because when a lot of people, and this is going to be kind of detrimental to a lot of people who want to go to college.
Yeah, that sounds like you'd have tuitions would plummet.
Yes, tuitions would plummet
because people wouldn't be able to
people wouldn't be going to college. And these not government facilities, these colleges would literally start shutting down. They'd have to make the choice.
That's what I was saying about the monopolization. You'd have only a couple left.
They'd have to make the choice of either shutting down or offering lower tuition. And when you offer lower tuition and you have these massive groups of majors that these people can follow, you offer these lower tuitions on each of these majors, then you're going to have a lot of people who just flood in to these colleges, which means when you have all these people flooding in, and all these other colleges are seeing these people flood into this one college, they just drop their tuitions by like half the amount they are, at least. And a bunch of people are flying into these majors. These people are going to be like, oh shit, we're going out of business.
But how does the college stay running, and how does the college pay the professors? How does this work? Where does the money come from?
They pay that. They pay the taxes. They pay their taxes, which would be more business tax oriented, to the government, and the government would probably offer their taxes. Would probably pay for the professors.
This is an interesting idea, but it seems I can see it happening and actually unfolding in a way that would maximize the issues with the education more than minimizing them. You see what I mean?
And that's the Marxist in you, whereas you have the capitalist in me.
I'm critical of systems that are left unhindered.
Well, we have to end.
We do?
Yeah, my dad's going to be here in like a minute.
Well, it was a good sort of like half episode.
Yeah. We should change the title to be like episode 6, part 1.
Episode 5.5.
Basically.
But I still had more to talk about.
Yeah, there was a point a while back I wanted to still talk about.
But I mean, we'll pick up where we left off next time, I guess.
Yes.
That's all right.
Sorry, guys.
We will see you next time.
See ya.